Hey, and welcome to the Strong Ambition Podcast. I'm your host, Rylan Qualley, and I'm here to dive into what makes people ambitious and live a more ambitious life. And I got a wonderful guest for this. One of the most, and I'm not kidding when I say this, one of the most ambitious people I had ever met personally. Through Focus Fitness, I met Matt Baily, who was a professional hockey player. He played throughout the American League. He played throughout Europe. And what's really unique to his story is that he was not naturally gifted in the sport of hockey by any means. And we dive into this within this interview. It's a really wonderful story about the person who just would not take no for an answer, who would, he had adversity and he would always take it as a sign that he just had to push harder in a new direction. And every time I was with him in the gym, I got that essence of him, that he was just, he will not be denied. And it was super inspiring to work with him. I got to work with him personally through boxing, and we dive into how we worked together for something that he wanted to work on because he felt he had to. So if you want to hear an inspiring story, this is the episode for you. Whatever you think you're trying to go after, really try to listen to this story and some of the details he has and he expresses on how he always forms this for the better. And I think that's what made his story so unique and why I wanted to have him on here. Now, I do apologize if you're watching this on YouTube. Matt had a bit of a poor connection, so the YouTube video isn't great, but the audio comes in pretty good and clear. So you're going to get a pretty good episode all in all. So listen in here, and without further ado, here is Matthew Baily. Good day, Matt Baily. So glad to have you. We go way back, so this is a real fun one for me. How are you doing today, Matt?
Doing great. The sun's shining. I already got my workout in today, so I got a small win to start the day. How about yourself, Rylan?
Oh, you would be a morning workout guy, right? I did a morning walk. I went outside. I've been starting to do outside morning walks to get that sunlight, and it's been really nice. So that sets my mood, and currently on my second cup of coffee here. So starting to feel that caffeine boost too. But I'm really pumped for this podcast because, as I mentioned, we kind of do go fair bit back just in terms of both of us, which was really kind of interesting. We're kind of coming up into our own careers, you in professional hockey and me in being a personal trainer, like simultaneously. I think you were at Focus a little earlier, but I think that's really cool because I was experiencing all this new stuff within my discipline as well as you were. But I don't really talk too much about the individual's history in the intro. I want you to tell your story, and I want to know your story. I want to know because, you're a local Winnipeg guy who made it into professional hockey, and I know you got a fascinating story to dig into today. So why don't you tell the listeners and viewers a bit about yourself, where you grew up, and how that got you into the sport of hockey?
Yeah, for sure. I appreciate you having me on. And I guess I'll start with I'm very lucky and grateful that we got connected through working together at Focus Fitness. And you said you weren't a morning guy, but I remember a lot of mornings you going the extra mile to meet me at the gym to work with me. So I think you are a morning guy when it's required, that's for sure. But yeah, I'm from Winnipeg, Manitoba, grew up just outside the perimeter. From Oak Bank, Manitoba. I was just like many other Canadian kids that like sports and started hockey because that's what your friends did. And from an early age, I had this drive that at least I don't remember being this young thinking those things, but from what my parents told me that I just knew I wanted to be a hockey player, and that kind of never left me. And for 25 years of my life, I dedicated pretty much my whole time and effort to trying to become the best hockey player I could. And through that experience, I learned a lot about life. I got to have amazing experiences and meet a ton of great people, and really shaped me into the man I am today.
Well, that's really what it is, right? Your sport defines you. It creates you in a way. And I mean, I still believe like I am a goalie at heart, just with the way that I handle stresses and stuff like that. But you really created an actual career. And, that was a very humble overview of it. And I like that. But I want to dive into what it's like to grow up with that obsession, because I do see individuals like yourself and any other hockey player that like stood out amongst the rest. And even then they stood on amongst the people around me, and they weren't even that good compared to people that you played with. So what do you feel were some of the influences? Like how did this passion really get manifested at a young age? Because, I would even just go shoot the ball around in the machine shed, and I thought I had a little obsession for it, and I thought I did it a lot. But to be at your skill level where you got to, it had to really become an obsession. Where do you think that these influences came from, and how do you think that really manifested itself so well inside you?
Yeah, and I think obsession's the right word. Like, you got to absolutely love it, and at the end of the day, it's about what you're doing when no one else is watching. But I don't know if I can put a pinpoint on why it really honed on. I think when I reflect back on it, being like a young Canadian kid, sports and hockey specifically, it kind of gives you a place in this world that, for me at an early age, I was good at it. So I think it was something that I learned, I'm really good at this. If I work hard, people notice that, it was something that started to create a bit of your identity. And I think I don't know why that it was, I think it's interesting I think the challenge of it, like now when I look back, my mom was, I'll call her the dreamer in the family. And she had me goal setting. And I think who I am is really a combination of both of my parents. So when I think, even now seeing my mom with my son, I even have more respect for it because, she, I know I'm getting away from it, but my son is 14 months, and my father-in-law is a drummer, and my kid has taken a liking to drumming. And now my mom is just like, oh, he's going to be a drummer. And now I'm seeing her, how she is with him. So I think, from an early age, she just created this belief system that, if you really want something, you can do it. So I think first from my mindset, a lot of my belief systems in myself come from my mom. And then on my dad's side, it was a lot about putting in the hard work, doing the things that are difficult, overcoming adversity. And I had this support system from loving parents that were very different, that gave me kind of the mindset to have this stick-to-itiveness to succeed. And I was definitely not the most talented kid. There were so many of my peers that were far more gifted than me. My success, at least in hockey, came from surrounding myself with great people, good coaches, and just this belief that I would find a way to get to the next level. So I think, a lot of the mindset and the motivation came from the parents, but the drive I was never pushed by my parents. That was something, it didn't matter. I never had a coach that ever needed to motivate me. My parents were never hard on me. Hey, you need to do this. That was just something that's internal in me. So I'm a very driven and disciplined person. But it's a good question because I don't know how to pinpoint how that started. That's just been something that's been a part of me. So I don't know if I answered your question a little bit.
You did, because you nailed the influences that supported the person that you were to be fostered to have the discipline and mindset that's required. And the way you described it is really important, and something I really recognized when I was at Focus with individuals like yourself, and you stood out so far with that exact character trait of adversity and grit. Like, it was not a matter of skill that you were going to rely on. It was a matter of, I'm not going to quit until I go as far as I physically can. And there is, you did, and I'm going to talk about this after, is you are a conditioning machine. So that is a bit of your genetics there, that just so people understand, at Focus Fitness we would do conditioning drills and you were always the top. Like, it was you and Hamonic that would just be the two best. And like, I still remember going through some cardio drills with you and you would breathe through your nose the whole time. It just was not hard. So there is some physical traits. But as you had said, as far as when it comes to hockey, conditioning can only get you so far. You have to be so like skill based. And I remember hearing someone say this about you, that no one was going to stop Matt Baily from playing professional hockey. It didn't matter. And I think that this is a bit of a theory, but I think it makes sense. You need the appropriate environment and genetics, but there's also like a genetic trait that comes within your nervous system that's like, I'm going to will myself to do shit. So you had your mother that helped you be the dreamer, your father that helped you be the worker, and then your mind fostered this to a point where, hey, I'm going to do this. And I really think that's a beautiful thing. If you were to pinpoint or rough, like what were some pivotal moments or maybe some eye-opening things that's saying to I can do this, I'm going to do this? Because, as a young kid growing up in hockey, I thought I was going to play the NHL, and I was a 5'8" goalie even when I grew up. And so it's like, it's not realistic. And so everyone wants to believe it, but when did that belief become like an absolute? When did it become a reality to you?
That I was going to make it to professional hockey, or? Yeah. I don't think it became a reality till it happened. I think, it was like, I think that you always, first and foremost, you have to just have this unwavering belief that you're going to figure it out. Like that I've always had. But that being said, I'm a person that wears my heart on my sleeve, and I'm emotional. I doubt myself daily. And I don't think there was ever a time I'm like, oh, I'm going to make it. Like I wasn't that guy. Like I just was never drafted. I was never one of the top people, but I just had this belief that, like you said, I wasn't going to be denied, and no one was going to tell me I couldn't do it, even though that came up many times. It was just like, I guess I reference back that something that drives me is I really like a very difficult challenge. And I knew how hard it was to make the pro hockey and play in the NHL. Obviously the dream was playing the NHL. Didn't quite make it, but feel very grateful for how far I got to do it and play the game I love for as long as I did. But I don't think there was a time that I'm like, oh yeah, like I'm on track. Like at each level that you move up in hockey, I always had this big chip on my shoulder. Like it was never a sure thing that, oh, I was going to get to that next level. So I think that's also a big part of who I am, was because it never came easy to me. I was never that person on track. Oh yeah, he'll get to, midget AAA. Oh, he'll get to junior. Oh, he'll get a scholarship. Oh, he could play pro. Oh, he could, like there was never that assurance that was going to ever happen for me. So I think that was definitely a motivating factor for me, because I had to prove it.
Well, that right there is, it's the best and worst thing that can happen to an individual, right? That right there is going back to that adversity. And, you really, I believe that there's people, because there's so many skill-based people that you see in the sport, right? You'll see it all the time in hockey, where individuals just like, physical attributes, there's not many. You see it all the time, like in the gym, right? Like there's so many guys who aren't that strong. They can't even do a full back squat. They can't do much. There wasn't a single thing in the gym you didn't know how to do well. But when it comes to the ice, this is skill that comes natural to people. You had to earn every single part of it. But that is, the benefit to it, right? That you just knew you had to put everything into it. And I think it made you not take things for granted. I think that's a huge part of your nature and individuals like yourself. And that's why I really loved having you on, because I think it's a very important story for people. But you had said something else that I really want to bring up, was this unwavering belief that, like, you just don't waver. You just have to keep believing. And it was really interesting that it was a Will Smith video YouTube inspirational night I went on, where I just watched a whole bunch of his videos, and he just kept saying that word, belief, belief, belief. And the biggest issue is when you listen to other people's beliefs, because they can easily say, no, you can't. No, because the average person, if you listen to the average person, they're going to say it's hard. It's too hard, right? But you want to be above average. You have to believe significantly above average, and you just have to keep believing that. So I really love that. It's an important story within your mindset, right? It's an important narrative that you give yourself. And that's really what defines your actions, is what's the story you're telling yourself. What were some, like, I just love to hear a bit more about your story, like growing up in hockey and stuff. What were some pivotal moments for you that was like, that was really hard, but I'm really glad I overcame it? Like, what were some big moments for you?
Yeah. So I've talked about this one, that when I reflect on it, this was like, I would say the very first big adversity that was like a rallying cry for who I was going to be as a person and how I was going to deal with that adversity. And that time was the Bantam Draft. So I'm 13 years old, pretty good player at that point, small, undersized. Like I said, I was not one of the best in the city by any means, but I was good. Like, you know, everyone knew who I was, and I played on top teams and I was doing well, but I was small. And in my mind, like, you know, I thought I was good enough to be drafted in the WHL Bantam Draft. And they used to have this tournament that was the Director's Cup. That was kind of a showing for, you know, where a lot of these WHL scouts were there. And in my mind, I had a fantastic tournament, great showing. I said, I really thought I had a chance. And no high expectations of going high, just thought I was good enough to go. And I wasn't drafted. And yeah, I remember very clearly being at school, watching it on the internet and not seeing my name come, crying on the bus, just being shocked. And I went to the basement and, yeah, I shot hockey pucks for like 4 or 5 hours. My hands were bleeding. And I just made the choice. I was like, no way, I'm going to do this. And, yeah, that was like a big time that I knew that that's how I was going to respond. And, yeah, I'm even getting emotional now, but I just knew that, watch me, like, you'll see, you have no idea. And that was kind of the drive. And then ever since that time, I knew who was going to show up when things got tough. And there's two things that when I look back at that is I took immediate action. That was the only thing that I knew what to do in that moment was I'm going to go train. And, yeah, so that was a big sense of, you know, who I was going to be. And when I was faced with adversity, I go back to those moments and I'm reminded of that many times now when I face adversity. Is like, I need to go work out. Things going wrong, clear my mind. I got to do something that I can control. And what can I do to take action right now that's going to give me a little bit of sense of I'm moving in the right direction. And that was a pivotal experience in my life.
Huge, and definitely can hear that you're still, it's very raw in you, and those are the most important things that happen to us, are the shittiest things. Like your biggest impacts in your life is like the skin grows thicker from the deepest cuts, and your bone will grow thicker from the biggest breaks, and that's really how you can define or will be defined. It's literally how you're going to be defined in this world. And you just want to actually, that's why I really appreciated the quote, pray not for an easy life, ask for the strength to endure a difficult one. And I used to think it was a Hakuna Matata. Like, I used to think it was about like trying to make life as easy as possible. And then I finally recognized that it was only when you're challenged, it's only when you have this adversity that you're actually going to build a character that's going to better serve you later in life. And like I can hear that raw emotion, but that means you're going to tap into that emotion later. And you have tapped into that emotion many times. And I can even think about a few other people. I'm willing to bet that you know a couple of them, but I know a couple of guys who got drafted. One guy got drafted high up in the Bantam Draft. I think, what year are you again, Matt? Are you in 1990?
91.
91. Okay, so the year before you. And this individual got drafted 3rd overall. And he was expected to go to the NHL or definitely play high level. He was known around our area being a great hockey player. He, like, when he was in grade 9, and I think I was in grade 11 at the time, he came in and he got a hat trick for the high school team. Like, it just wasn't hard for him. He's a great skater. But then as soon as he met his matches, other people that were at his skill level, he didn't play well. He didn't train. He turned into an alcoholic, and he left the sport within a year or so. No adversity. And, you know, that's kind of like why I love your story so much, because you're literally not allowing people to tell you where you belong. And I think that's a beautiful thing. And like you kept pushing. So if you can keep kind of going on this story, because, you know, I think this would be a great story to hear, because you are at this point in Bantam, don't get drafted, but you got to keep pushing. What were the bigger moments that allowed you? And I mean, you did play professional hockey. You played in Europe. You played also, I think, in some of the more local professional hockey as well. So I love to hear how you got to a point where you're paid to play your sport. So after the Bantam Draft, what were your next really good moments where you were able to overcome and make it happen for yourself?
Yeah. So, I mean, I feel like it's an important time to bring this up, because it's tying into, you know, what I think is valuable to your podcast and my story is, my parent, like, on this adversity thing, when I think back of adversity, okay, sure, I had some adversity in my hockey career, but let's not, the amount of adversity I've faced in my life is very little. Like, I came from super loving parents that gave me every opportunity to succeed. Money was not an issue. They've made it work to support my dreams. If there was a camp or a coach I wanted to, I might have had to work to get them to do it, but they gave me every opportunity. So, and then from the mindset piece of it, like I said, specifically with my mom, is I had the support system from both of my parents, who are still my biggest mentors, that they never once said you couldn't do it. Like, there was no reality check. Like, I think a lot of parents or families are like, hey, it's really hard to play pro hockey. Like, you know, very small, shocking percentage of people actually get to do it. I never got that message from my parents. Like, it was always, oh, you want it? Okay, well, you can do it. Like, we're going to find a way to get you there. We'll get you the coaching you need. So I really do think that was a big thing. Like, my parents never put a cap on my ceiling, even though I was never, like, on that trajectory of like, oh, this kid could do it. So I know I'm talking a lot about my parents, but I think it's a big part of it.
Absolutely.
And then, so yeah, I mean, after the Bantam Draft, I think that's when I started up with, or it was probably that year I started training with Focus Fitness and Jeff Wood and Glenn Carnegie. And then, you know, that was kind of my first steps of, you know, okay, I know that this is a full-time commitment. This is something that I need to be committed to. So I had my parents and I surrounded myself with people that we thought were the best people to help me get there. And yeah, it was hard work. So then from there, I played in Oakbank, my minor hockey, and then at 15, I made midget AAA in Eastman. I think there was 3 kids that made it as 15-year-olds. So I did the local midget AAA, and I would say kind of around 16, I started to move a little bit higher up in terms of getting an opportunity to play junior at a young age. So I started to grow a bit around 16, 17. So I kind of caught up to some of my peers from a physical standpoint. And then I played 1 year midget AAA, and then I went to the Nipoa Natives. I made the team as a 16-year-old. And at 16, I was playing in the MJ. So you're playing with, kids that are adults that are much older than you, not adults, but, 16 to 20-year-olds. So that was a big step. And I earned a full scholarship to Anchorage, Alaska, which was a rare thing. I think, WHL, and very fortunate again that my dad did a lot of his homework, talked to a lot of people about opportunities. And like I said, I was never going to be that kid that was going to sign a pro contract at 19. So the college thing made sense to my parents. Okay, he's going to get an education. He's going to have a little longer time to develop. And I think it was a bit of fate that I had a midget tournament at North Dakota. Super naive kid, knew nothing about college hockey, at this great tournament in North Dakota, is playing Anchorage, Alaska. And for the listeners that don't know North Dakota, it's like one of the top 3 schools you can play in college hockey. Incredible atmosphere, sold out crowd. So I'm at this game and I'm like, man, this is unbelievable. Like every college hockey team's like this. And a year later, I had that school, Anchorage, Alaska, offer me a full scholarship, and I thought it was a great opportunity. So I committed to them. And then from there, I took the next step kind of in the hockey leap of the world, going to the USHL. So I played 2 years in the USHL, which was a huge platform for me to continue to develop and grow my game, to where I would go to Anchorage, Alaska at 19. But I think that the thing about hockey is it's never, everyone is telling you the same things on what you need to work on, and it's all the same thing, but it's very, like you need to have this work ethic. And I'll use a quote from both of our mentors, AJ Zieglin, that I think really built into my mindset was, for me, like the skill set of improving that had to be done on the ice, but there's a set of things that you can do that took no skill that really got me there, that kept me in the game long enough to develop the on-ice skill. So it was those, and when I talk about those things that take no skill, it's like being on time, your work ethic, your effort, your body language, your attitude, your mindset. And this is stuff, that Jeff and AJ and yourself and I were hearing from these people that I really took into my mindset. And I just knew that I need to spend more of my time doing those things to stay in the game long enough that my skill set, the technical side of the game, could continue to grow. But the things that took no skill kept me in the game long enough for those to keep growing, which I think is an important piece for people to realize. It was all the no skill thing that gave me enough time in the game to get the skill part of it. So I think at every level that gave me that time to build that up, to where I kind of turned myself into a player that had the hockey skill to keep making at each level. And each level, it's a funnel where it becomes harder and harder and more guys drop out. So yeah, I guess I'm bringing up that those non-skill required things can buy you time to continue to work on the things that make you an expert in whatever field or challenge you're doing.
Absolutely. I love that terminology of the non-skill based attributes. And I always yell this at my boxers when they're training. I'm like, you working hard right now, it takes no skill, just work hard. And then, I actually want them to dial down their intensity of the skill-based stuff. And I think that's actually a huge problem with people when they're working on skill-based stuff, and they think it's all intensity-based. And, hockey is a huge skill sport. Like, you want to work on your hands. You can't just stick handle faster and get better hands. It's actually worse. But you can do laps, you can do man makers, you can do extra conditioning outside of the gym. And it takes no real skill, maybe a little bit more advice from someone on your skating stride. That stuff will certainly help, but off ice stuff that will attribute that conditioning on ice, it doesn't require skill, and it just requires that hard work. And I like how you say that, because that's something that's a really valuable lesson for people. Focus on the non-skill based stuff and making sure that's just deadlocked. And even beyond just the conditioning, like showing up on time, listening, having the mindset to listen to coaches, having just, one of the major things I wanted to point out was you continue to come back from a point of view of gratitude, and you giving your parents so much credit, but even just your whole story, like you don't allow yourself to sit in a victim mindset. That tells me right then and there that you're going to be more of an opportunistic person. This is why it's such a huge thing these days to say, hey, where's your gratitude journal? And that's just so people have a practice of gratitude. And I think in general, you don't need one if you have a mindset of gratitude, but you need to have a mindset of, hey, every opportunity is an opportunity. Even bad things you can be grateful for in the end. And so those are attributes that, don't necessarily need an extensive skill on. You just need to show up for. And if you have these simple set of things that you show up for while you're working on the skill, that'll push you much further. So I think that's a really, really good description and a very valuable lesson for individuals to listen to. And this goes into right where you left off, because this is something I told you I want to talk about. If I'm correct, you're now in college hockey. And so I'm going to tell it from my angle, because this was really cool for me, because I knew you before, and, I would train you here and there, but not as intensely until I get a phone call from Matt Baily. And he says, hey, Rylan, I want to do some boxing. Came back from the hockey year. I'm like, okay. So I listened to the phone call, and he's like, yeah, so my hockey coach told me that he wished I fought more. I didn't know I was supposed to fight more in college hockey. So I really didn't, because you're a disciplined person. You didn't try to get in the scraps. You didn't think you didn't need to. And then you were just basically told, hey, I wish you fought more. Okay, Rylan, I want to see you 3 times a week for the next 2 months. It's like, oh my goodness, are we training for a fight? And sure enough, 3 times a week, at least every morning, you showed up to learn boxing in the best way that we could. And I think I would just love to hear your mindset on that. Was that, it was a simple kind of, again, just, hey, this doesn't require the hockey-based skill, but I have a skill I can learn. Is that kind of still going into that mindset of, I can develop the skill if you ask me?
Yeah, I think it goes into just finding the way, like this unwavering belief that, okay, if I need to do this to get to there, I'm willing to sacrifice and do whatever's necessary to get to that next level. It's kind of that obsession. And yeah, I'm not an aggressive person, I think, by nature. But I think when I came to you, that was my first year pro, which I would say was another big reality check on how difficult it is. Even though you're, on an NHL contract, I think at this time I'd played my 4 years at college. I signed an NHL deal with the Anaheim Ducks, which was like an absolute accomplishment. It was, so grateful I got that opportunity, because it's another huge drop off of really good college hockey players that don't get the opportunity to, sign an NHL deal and then, get the opportunity to go to NHL camps, play in the American League. Like a lot of fantastic players, have to start in the East Coast. So here I was, I got the chance to sign an NHL deal, go to NHL camp. I played my first year pro, and the story was I had a really, really difficult year. Didn't do nearly as good as I wanted to. The organization, I'll just say, like, I'm in my exit meeting, and it was some very harsh words. They were disappointed in me. They told me, there's a bunch of guys on the team for next year. So I was on a 2-year contract. So I was coming back next year, that are on this roster in Penn you're most definitely in pencil. We can easily erase you. We're wondering, why you only got in one fight this year. We thought you were a guy that had some grit to their game. So I was kind of getting called out for being soft and not living up to their expectations. So it was just another one of those moments that you're like, okay, this is a business. This is also, some harsh things like, okay, what are you going to do about it? So I guess that was me reaching out to you, is like, okay, you guys want to see if I can do that? Let's do a little training from that. So again, tried to surround myself with someone that could coach me on that. And I was very lucky that I had Ryland, who, like I said, this was not something that was required of you in your role when you were training me at Focus. It was something you did out of the goodness of your heart to help me out. And I think that the reason me and you got along so well is because you could see that I was going to give you my time, my effort, and actually listen to what you wanted to coach me. And you were obviously had your own background in boxing and had a lot to offer in this field. So yeah, like you said, I was like, okay, let's add this to my skill set. And that's how me and you got to start doing some early mornings boxing.
Yeah, and it's so fun to work with individuals like yourself on any skill. It could be basic training. I always enjoyed you in the gym because you were a person as passionate about everything that I was doing. Like you were as obsessed with your movement pattern, with boxing or training itself. You wanted to know it all and be a part of it all. And when someone is passionate about, movements, training, nutrition, anything like that, like, we're going to get along great because you're going to do what we ask, or you're even going to ask questions on why. And I love the question why, but it's just so much, you don't have to motivate a person. You just got to show them a direction, and then it's a lot of fun. And we had a ton of fun. The funnest thing I actually want to point out, and this actually goes into what I mentioned, you being a conditioning machine. So we did boxing for, I think a good month maybe before we got into the tech sparring and some light sparring stuff. And so we finally get into the light sparring. And I'm not by any means in the competitive route at this point, but I had some conditioning basis. And usually when you get a newbie, someone new in conditioning into sparring, they should be out of breath. Like the nervous system firing up, aerobic system firing up in a different way. And, we did a few rounds and I even kind of got a little tired, and I was like, okay, so you're probably out of breath. And you're like, breathe through your nose. You're like, no. It was just like, I couldn't get you tired. Like it didn't matter what it was. And I think, again, I want to come back how this was talking about how you always ensured that your conditioning was above and beyond everyone else in the gym. You had this and I'm curious if this was something that maybe you had a bit more of an endurance base growing up as an athlete, but your aerobic system blew me away. I think you probably had extraordinarily high VO2 max.
Yeah. Yeah, I think there's some things that are just God-given, and I think I was blessed with the ability to be very efficient at conditioning exercises. I was always had this endurance. Like I was never that explosive. I had to work far harder to jump higher and sprint quicker, but when it came to doing anything at kind of my 90% ratio, I have a very high ability to sustain that for a long time. And it wasn't nothing that I did to train that way, but I think the mindset part of who I am comes out there too. Is, I always tried to use that as a strength in other ways. So, it doesn't matter if you're playing me in pickup basketball. If I'm playing someone that's far better at basketball, you better bet that I'm going to challenge you to have good cardio just to level the playing field. So if you're playing a simple one-on-one, you better believe that I'm going to sprint out to the line and come back and play hard defense because I don't have the talent to play offense. So I think the same thing, you try to figure out what your strength is, and that was just a strength of mine. So I tried to use it when it was appropriate, and then I tried to train my weaknesses to get better at, because I don't know if that's it's probably not what you want to be a hockey player. I think the fast twitch if I was to trade, I would trade that for my conditioning in a moment. But yeah, I think you got to find what works for you and find a way to take advantage of it.
Yeah, you definitely had it. And you're probably right. Like, I mean, it's a very explosive sport. You have 30-minute long shift is a long shift, right? So you actually definitely want the explosiveness. But I was curious, because I know hockey players always do testing. Did they ever give you a number for your VO2 max at any point?
Yeah, I'm trying to think of what it was. I know it was always like in the upper echelon of the group. Yeah, I don't want to say a number because I don't know for certain, but yeah, let's just say it was always higher than most people. Like, what's a normal number? I think it's like over 60, right? If I'm remembering VO2 maxes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I know it was over 60, but I don't remember the number specifically.
Yeah, no, that would be just the nerd in me would want to know that number. I think I think I had around 55, 60, but I didn't hit a max. I hit a peak, because to know your real VO2 max or close to it, you got to do the breathing tube, and you got to do a form of running that actually puts you to your maximum capacity. And so when I did it, I did a bike test, and I at the time I really didn't bike much, so it was just my quads were annoying. But if you do like a running test, you're really going to find it out. But in any case, that's just the nerd in me. I do love that. So yeah, and then the other thing, another big one to me that stood out and I wanted to talk about was, right after, it was like the year after, I think, wasn't it? When you well, actually, I'm sorry, before we talk about the injury, how was the first fight experience? It was a bit quick, but how was that? How did the boxing kind of prep you for that?
Yeah, I remember feeling a lot more comfortable with it. And I think I have some fond memories of us trying to engineer and think about the best way to train for hockey fighting. I still remember being on the small rink, and we brought in another expert in this field, Dylan McElrath, and the three of us were in some pretty funny hockey equipment in this little rink with one boxing glove and hockey equipment, and you and Dylan giving me the tricks of the trade. So I think after that summer, I was more comfortable enough that I would, not get beat up too bad, that I could at least hold my own. And I wouldn't say it was that turned into a way that got me to keep playing in professional hockey. But I do remember that, when you're getting healthy scratch and in your situation where things aren't going your way or there's momentum in the game, that having trained that, I tried to use that to stand out. But definitely wasn't something that I did often. But again, I think it just comes to the mindset of, okay, you got something you want to work on, surround yourself with the best people, train as hard as you can for it, and then use it when you see fit the best you can. So I remember kind of misgauging when to do it a few times, like where I got in trouble for trying to start a fight with a skilled guy that maybe wasn't the toughest guy and he wasn't obliging, and then being in the penalty box and him not fighting me and then getting in trouble for taking a penalty. So that was kind of funny, is like, here I was, trying to do the thing that I was told I needed to do more of, but then it actually got me into trouble for not doing it at the right time. So there's an art and a craft to that too. And I wouldn't say that was something I was the best at either.
Well, yeah, and the sport is really losing its edge around the fighting, right? So you have, like you say, art or craft for sure, not just to do it physically, but to time it, because you can get instigator penalties really quick. Before, it used to be, hey, guys, drop your gloves, you're going to defend yourself. But now it's like very quickly they'll call the instigator. You could even have, if I'm correct, I'm pretty sure that you can have two guys fight, but if someone initiates it kind of unnecessarily, they can still call you for an extra, and they're just trying to make the sport safer, which makes sense. And that brings me to the on ice sparring that we did. I don't know if I'd ever do that again with hockey players. I still remember like if anyone from management walked in on that, we would have been kicked off that rink. I think it was Stoic was like, he almost kind of slipped backwards. I'm like, this guy's got a fucking soft headgear on, and he was one slip away from hitting his head on the ice. And I'm just like, never again. Like, that day was like the last day I was going to do it ever again on the ice. Off ice kind of technique stuff with gear on, very light, I could see done, but that was super. And then I'm even thinking about, you remember, like, I think a couple of years, or one of the first years I was there, we were just doing cage rage in the gym. And it was, again, just like two like stupid risks that, hindsight, you just don't try to pull off anymore. But in any case, so now I want to move forward to that injury. And this was another really cool experience for me to watch you handle this. So tell us about the injury that happened and how you handled it, because I remember you saying it was a blessing in disguise.
Yeah, I mean, I think I had quite a few, like, when you stick to something long enough, you're going to have a bunch of adversity in whatever field or sport you're doing. And I had my fair share of injuries, but I'd say, I had some shoulder problems that I think me and you worked closely to improve. And I can kind of come back on how I think I would not obsess so much about just working on the problem so much. But I think the injury that stands out the most, that really kind of propelled myself and kind of, again, the mindset that I could just overcome things, was it was my second year pro, and I got a blindside elbow. I broke my jaw in 3 places, multiple face fractures. I had a hairline fracture in my C6 in my neck. And it was both my parents and my wife's parents were at the game. And pretty traumatic injury. And again, very fortunate that I was playing in San Diego at the time, which has the best surgeons in the world. That happened at a home game, and I go to the hospital to get all fixed up, and I have the absolute best care. And I end up getting my jaw wired shut, I think, for 6 weeks. And at this point, this is the second year in my deal with Anaheim. Like I'd said, the first year wasn't great. And up until that point, that year, we had a new coach, which gave me a new opportunity. This was Dallas Eakins, who's, one of the best coaches I ever played for. But to that point, I was very much barely holding on, in and out of the lineup. Like I said, trying to fight when it wasn't the case. Anything I could do to just earn a little bit more opportunity to prove that I was good enough to play at that level. And then this injury happened, and it was a big injury, and I guess no one on the team and the organizations, the trainers, the doctors, they were like, this is at Christmas time. So like, oh, okay, the season's probably over. Like, again, lucky that, I didn't, I recovered quickly, and I just focused all my attention of getting better. I had no, even though I had a concussion, I think I even had a brain bleed, but I had no concussion symptoms. I was feeling back like myself. I'm sure, because you like nutrition and can appreciate this, like I didn't lose a pound. I was blending everything, like eating normal meals. It didn't matter what we were making. I would just throw that shit in the blender, throw chicken, not chicken, like vegetable broth or chicken broth in with anything. Like I was putting everything in the blender, and I was training like crazy, even though I wasn't supposed to be doing anything with weights. But again, I was working on my cardio. I was doing absolutely everything I could be ready. And then in my mind, I was like, okay, this is the last year of my deal. I got to get healthy. I got to get back, and I need to make a difference to kind of stay there. Like it's a big turning point in my career. And I was able to be at a point where I got the wires taken off 6 weeks later, and I had gotten back on the ice. I think 3 weeks later, I was back in the gym doing everything. And the team was trying to slow me down. Hey, you can't be doing this. You can't be doing that. But I'm like, I'm fine. Like, I know my body, like I'm good. And, sure enough, when that 6 weeks is up, my jaw was all better. I got the green light from the surgeon that I could play. There was injuries in the lineup. So I had this opportunity. I think it was 2 days after I got my wires off. The team was going to have to call someone up because other guys were hurt. And Dallas Eakins came. He's like, hey, you know, you weren't going to play for another 2 weeks. You know, you haven't even had like any contact in practice. I know you said you're good. But do you want to play? Like we're going to have to call someone up. And I said, yeah, I'm ready. Like, so I got this chance, like coming off injury, to play kind of the biggest opportunity I had, like in the top two lines at that time. And I just ran away with it. And I earned my coach's trust on how I dealt with the injury. And I ended up probably playing some of my best hockey I ever played. And I think I finished the season with like 17 points in 19 games, and, you know, like had a big role, played in the playoffs, like was playing in the top two lines with great players. And yeah, it just really changed. And it earned me another year to sign another AHL deal. But it was from that adversity that changed people's mind to get my opportunity. And then the luck of people being hurt, which, I just kind of seized that opportunity.
Right. Well, you know, it's luck is, what is it? Opportunity meets hard work or something like that. There's a better quote for it, but yeah, like, I mean, if you're not trying, like people say, oh, you get lucky. It's like, no, you make sure that you're like persistent and you're doing everything right. And then when the opportunity comes, then you're lucky, right? Like that's what people always want to say. It's luck. It's like there are genetic lucks, there's environmental luck, but if you control everything up to that lucky point, that's when it's just a good opportunity. And so that's what you did, and I love that story. I also just remember when you came back that summer, is you had like completely dressed it up as, like you said, yeah, it was a blessing in disguise. I actually discovered a lot about my shoulder health. I discovered a lot about this and that, and it's like it was, you know, a shattering injury. It could have put someone aside for the whole year, as you even said, but you took it not only not to keep you down, but then I just remember that year specifically, and then you might have been doing it a bit more before, but I remember for sure that year, it was a 45-minute prep before every single training session before we even, and you were just doing your own shit. You would come in early, 45 minutes, soft tissue rolling, making sure everything was balanced and loose, and then start your workout because you were so obsessed with ensuring that your body is again, controlling every factor that you can. Your body is as prepped as it can to do the training it needs to. And I think for the exception of Brennan that you would bring in with you, no one else was doing a 45-minute prep. Some of the older guys might do a 20 to 30, like a light roll or something like that, just because they're feeling older and they want to roll out. But you were always above and beyond. And I thought that was another prime example of just how you control everything you can. And that's really kind of what set you to have the career you had. So I think it's a really cool story. Now, from there, just so we can kind of wrap up where you ended up with your career and kind of how you exited, just so that the listeners have a sense of it. Because again, I think you had a lot of challenges along the way, and then you eventually played in Europe, correct?
Yeah, I played in Europe, Sweden, and Germany for 5 years after 3 years in the American League. And yeah, that's an amazing thing about hockey is you have these opportunities to play the game you love in many different places in the world and earn a living and make good money doing what you love. So there's so many opportunities that, of course, aren't easy to get, but there's fortunate in hockey that it's a big enough sport in enough countries that you can go do it. And it gave me the opportunity to see the world. I got to do a ton of traveling, a lot of great life experiences where you live in different cultures, you see different ways people go about life. So a lot of very unique experiences that I'm very grateful that a hockey career showed me. That's kind of where the hockey career ended. I ended up playing in Sweden my last year. And this is my first full year being retired. So that's, I guess, closing the hockey career loop.
Yeah, no, and I mean, how can you not be happy with that? You know, you're retiring your career just around the age of 30 and 31, and it's, you know, so few people, like you had said, how many people, you didn't even get drafted in the Bantam Draft. So many people would have doubted you could make anywhere near where you did, and you had a full-on professional career. And like you say, a living doing what you're passionate about is something everyone should be grateful for, because so many people are making livings they do not like their job. And so that's an amazing thing to overcome. I really love that. So I don't want to take up too much more of your time. I'll probably have you on here again for more mindset stuff, because I know both of us are pretty obsessed with that, and we can dive into some other things. But what I'd love to hear is, what is your most recent ambition? What's coming down the pipeline for you now?
Yeah, so I've found a new passion, a new Mount Everest to challenge. Like I said, there's something about me that love challenges. So I now work at RBC Dominion Securities as an investment advisor, where I'm honored and have the privilege of empowering people to improve their health, their wealth, their relationships, and live with a sense of purpose. So obviously my role is more on the money management side, but a big part of who I am is seeing the whole picture. And we're kind of running out of time, but I know, based on our discussion, kind of tying that together, that to live the good life and everything that you want in life is, it's usually not in the extremes, but it's having this nice balance somewhere in the middle. So, you can have all the money in the world, but if you don't have your health, you don't have meaningful relationships, and you don't live with the sense of purpose, what's it for? And you could say the same thing about any of those wheels. So the analogy I use is the 4 wheels of life. So yeah, maximizing your health, living with the sense of purpose, maintaining strong relationships, and creating financial freedom. And I have the privilege of helping people create financial freedom. And I'm proud to empower people to work on those other things. And I guess to tie to a big part of who I am is, for me, it really does start with your health, because I know when things are hard in my life, or, you're in pain or you have an injury, it's really hard to be at your best in those other 3. I mean, they all suffer. If you're lacking in one area, it's going to affect the quality of your ride. But for me, health just stands out as, that most important thing. That's just really a lot more in your control than you think. Obviously, there's genetics and predispositions, but there's a lot you can do, low-hanging fruit, to optimize that. And it's been a big part of, I think, who I am and my success. So I think having the ability to learn and find people like yourself to maximize your health is one of the best things you can do in terms of an investment. And that's when I see health as a whole picture, is the ability to do what you love without the fear of having any pain. So my new fitness goals is, I love sports and being competitive is never going to leave. And I want to be able to go tackle any crazy challenge without the fear of not being able to get up the next day and, take on something new. And like we talked about, I try to do my conditioning in a way that is fun. So that's why I play sports. So although me and you challenged me to do a lot of crazy conditioning activities, now I try to find more joy, where I got really into tennis. So I get, a lot of my sprinting in and, footwork and explosiveness, doing something I love where you're not thinking about it. So I think for anyone that's, trying to improve their health, to try to find things in their life that they really enjoy doing that, maximizes their health, and put that in there. And that's different for everyone. Obviously not everyone's into sports. So whether it's hiking or, ballet, yoga, or whatever brings that balance in your life, incorporate that in. And I think I'll kind of leave it there. But yeah, I really think that's one of the most important pillars of living the good life.
Completely agree. You know, it's you got to look at the whole picture, and it's not just I can obsess over training and nutrition, but what I really think it is it's what you're moving, certainly what you're putting inside you, but who's around you when you do it, and what your mindset's like within all of that, right? So as you had said, it doesn't have to be even regular strength training. Like, a person just learns to enjoy walking, just moving their body in some way. I personally don't love long distance running, but I get why people do. So do your running, play your tennis, anything, especially play. Play is such an important thing. And I actually went back to hockey this last year. I hadn't played goalie in so long, and it was humbling. You know, I sucked, and then I got better. But that experience,
I saw you out there. You were pretty good. I saw you at the Manitoba Cup, Ryland. I was impressed.
Okay, you saw me play out. I actually almost scored. I think I got shut down, or I missed the net, but did almost score. But that was me playing out. I only played out 2 games this year, and that was in that tournament. But as a goalie, I played in net again, and super humbling. But even being humbled and learning that skill, but then getting into the skill where I felt good about it again, but getting in that flow state, like you say, within tennis, anything like that, golf, anything, just find some passion in movement, find some passion in relationships, and appreciate that the food that you put in is going to nurture all that, and get some sleep. And I think you got a whole picture of health there. So I love hearing all of this stuff that's coming down the pipeline. And you did message me once again, right when you got back, hey man, I want to do some boxing. So I'm up for it whenever you're ready to get back into or do some hand pad stuff, and maybe some light technical sparring whenever you're feeling ready. But thanks so much for hopping on here today. And again, I'll probably have you on again, and we'll talk more, dive more into mindset stuff in the future.
Yeah, I'll have to take you up on that. My shoulders are ready for it, so I'm ready to take on that challenge again. But thank you so much for having me, Ryan. Like always, it's always a pleasure spending time together.
Thank you again to Matt Baily. That was a wonderful conversation. I enjoyed it. That was so much fun. He's such an inspirational person to me. Even when I just worked around him, I was just always inspired. I remember one of the first days I saw him, he was staying after his workout. He went after the cable machine. He was just practicing doing a face off with a cable. He's like, I'm going to make my money winning face offs. I was like, man, this kid's awesome. And he was younger then too. We were both younger. And so I kept seeing that, always working his ass off, always one of the most conditioned, if not the most conditioned guy in the gym. And there's something very important there about what his mindset was. It's not just that he had perseverance. It was actually the fact that he was undeniable. I'd heard this before in another podcast, is be undeniable. And it's super inspirational, because think about that very raw moment he had on this podcast, and I loved it. I loved how raw and real it was. I could hear the emotion in his voice, and it inspired me, because that pain, that absolute, that raw emotion of pain and disappointment fueled him so much. And just think about that. Think about a position that you've had in your life. He had a choice. Just kind of quit the sport after high school, or just kind of do what you can in high school hockey, or be undeniable. And he went and shot the puck for 4 hours. He just went and said, no, I'm leaning into this. This is the path. And that undeniable, unwavering belief, it just I want the challenge. I think I mentioned before in the podcast, if there's any skill that he has, it's that he invites challenge, and he is undeniable. But I do believe that in and of itself is a skill. And I do believe that is a skill you can develop, is you have these low, these fundamental, not really super genetic based skills, like showing up on time, having the mindset, being grateful, all these things. But there is a skill of taking adversity. We all need to work on that skill. We all need to work on, hey, you got uncomfortable, lean into it, right? So he shows how much he's fostered that skill, and he's always taken it in stride, even to the point where his coaches wanted to put him on the bench for the end of the year, and he was undeniable. And I just think that's beautiful. That inspired me even more. Like, I'm looking at, am I becoming undeniable in my business and for my clients and for my lifestyle? And I don't think I am. I think I am allowing myself to be denied more than I should. So I think I got inspired by this. If you know anyone who needs inspiration, please send this to them. I hope you got inspired from this. Like, subscribe, share, all the good stuff. But I think more people need that message that you can be undeniable. I think that listening to too many people around you that are living an average life, your average recommendation and advice is going to be shit. It's that simple. The average person is going to tell you, it's safer to do this, it's safer to do that. Well, look at the average fitness, look at the average mindset around these things, right? You want to be above average, you have to think abnormally, you have to think above and beyond. And that's what we got from Matt Baily today. And that's why he was able to have a wonderful career. I still remember listening to someone talk about Matt Baily, and they just phrased it so well. No one was going to deny him from being a professional hockey player, because his mindset was so strong. Man, that's inspiring. I hope that is a story for you to take into your own life. Be undeniable. Be inspired to chase that path. And I mean, there's a reason why my whole mantra of this podcast is about chasing things. Because if you chase your ambition, that's your happiness. If you allow yourself to get pushed to the side from what people are telling you, you're going to have to find, an in-between. But there's a reason why these people are so driven, because there's more happiness within the drive, within the chase, right? So it's a great way to leave it, right? Let's go back to that old mantra and really, really sit into these words as I say them. And I hope you feel them, because you've got to know it is not about the pursuit of happiness. It's about the happiness within the pursuit. And I'll catch you next time.